Tonight we have with us, our guest is Lauren Perkins, and we are going to be discussing healing from addiction through spirituality. So Lauren, why don't you go ahead, start us off on, just tell us a little bit about you, who you are, and then we can get into this conversation.
Well, I am turning 32 this year. I was addicted to just about anything under the sun, but for a majority of my addiction, about 2.5 years, I was a meth user. 6 months of that I was intravenous. I have been sober from that, going on 9 years now, and it has been it's been a journey, a beautiful journey.
I can imagine so.
Yeah, but it's been beautiful because I was at one place in my life where I felt just bottomed out, lost, confused, just living to die essentially. I had so much shame built up inside of me and guilt from the 2.5 years of addiction that I had, because let me backtrack. I had been using since the age of 16. It started out with alcohol, pills. I was actually diagnosed with depression at the age of 16. They had me on, oh my gosh, a cocktail of prescriptions. At one point, I was taking Xanax and Klonopin together under the age of 18.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so...
I was going to say, I've dealt with anxiety and depression myself in the past, and I'm a big guy, and they were leery about just giving me straight Klonopins.
Yeah, this doctor that I had, he was all about doping me up. And I feel like a lot of that had, at the time I was just dabbling in alcohol, but once I started experiencing what I had felt with these prescription medications, it opened a whole nother door. And then at that point I was trying pain pills. I was trying, anything I could get my hands on. But that went on until, I was 24. And now I'm, like I said, I've been, sober for, I'll be 9 years in May.
Congratulations on your sobriety.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It has been like I said, if it wasn't for my drug addiction, I wouldn't be the person I am today. I lived very much in my ego, very self-centered. It was always about what I wanted, when I wanted it, and I didn't consider other people. And, over the course of the last 8.5 years, I have slowly stripped that ego away. And I'm trying to be more spirit-minded as far as, living in the light, showing other people the light, just really trying to open people's doors. That way they can hopefully one day walk through them themselves.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's really fun now that I'm on the other side of the spectrum, instead of needing the help, I'm giving the help.
Right. And that's, I think that's a beautiful thing to see. I've worked around a couple of different ministries and stuff in the past that have had addiction recovery services in there, and it's always beautiful to see the guys who come in, or not just the guys, the men and women who come in for those services turn around and start to be the ones that are leading the group.
That's what it's about. You got to take what you learn from this world and share it with others,
Exactly.
Because then it doesn't mean there's no meaning. If you keep all that knowledge to yourself, then you're not learning what it's all about. It's all about sharing what you've learned and passing that on to the next generation so they can live, and not make the mistakes that, we made in our prior generation.
Right.
It's all about liberation, liberating the future,
Excellent. Most definitely. So you said that your spirituality was a big part of your recovery process, and in the 12-step programs they talk about that. They talk about in the 12-step program, which most people, when they talk about sobriety and stuff, they know the 12-step program. or have heard of it.
Oh
And
yeah, I'm very, very familiar with it. It has helped me. I've taken some things from the 12 step and utilized it within my recovery. I think it's a great program. It just didn't fit me.
and that's something that people need to know is just because it's a recovery program that's out there that is well known and has had lots of great success in helping people recover, it may not be for everyone. It may not fit everyone. So finding what fits for you is what's important.
Exactly. There are many truths in one path.
Right.
So you have to follow your path. You just have to find which truth it is you want to walk.
Right.
And so I think with the 12-step program, I think the biggest one was for me was righting my wrongs. That was the one that I really was like, you know what, I really have got to do this, because my parents took the brunt of my addiction. I had kids. Thankfully, I didn't lose them, because my parents, they took up for me when I was down and out. And so now, we're all living together under the same roof, which is beautiful, because at one point in my life, I never thought that it was ever going to happen.
Right.
And so, I'm just thankful that my parents were as supportive as they were and as patient as they were with me. And so, the one thing I will say about the 12-step program that doesn't resonate with me is admitting that you are helpless, hopeless, and you need, you're stuck in this helpless, hopeless mindset, admitting your defeat, essentially, which, we all have to admit we're defeated, but we are not helpless and we are not hopeless. That is only a state of mind.
Right.
And, when you resonate in that mind frame, then of course you're going to attract that helpless and that hopelessness. But once you realize that you are not helpless and you are not hopeless over this addiction, that you are a warrior and that you are going to triumph over this thing, that it doesn't have control over you anymore, I think is when you really truly ascend from that state of being.
Right. And that's when you step up and you really realize it's time to start fighting.
Right. And now, I used to identify as I'm an addict. I don't identify with that anymore, because I'm not an addict. I'm not addicted. I have overcome my addiction. I don't feel the need, for this, substance to complete me anymore. There was a moment in time where I feared being sober. I feared it. It was boring to me, and that now is like, it's silly to even think that I thought that way, because of the fact that, like, I enjoy, like, the ever permeance of being sober now. Like, it is so beautiful. You have such a heightened, level of awareness,
right,
that it is almost, sometimes when I'm in those state of like nirvana, I'm like, I get goosebumps from head to toe, and I'm like, man, this is better than any drug I've ever had. And so it's really a great feeling to have, knowing that, I've overcome that demon within me, and that I don't have that tying me down anymore.
Excellent. So what was your first steps to overcoming this addiction that you was battling at this point in time?
Well, my first step was literally in this room we are sitting in right now, getting on my hands and knees and admitting my defeat. I prayed to Spirit. I said, please get me sober. I can't live like this. The insanity is just, it's just ridiculous. When I'm high, I'm not happy. I'm feeling guilty. And then when I'm not high, I'm craving being high. And it was just a turmoil, like a pull and a tug back and forth. And I was just like, I can't do this. And I'm not kidding you. In this very room, I was on my belly. Please get me sober, and I will live in your light. I will live for you. And it's just been an ongoing thing. It was kind of like, I believe a lot in synchronicity. There is
Absolutely.
There's no mistake. There's no coincidence. It is all divine timing. And it was kind of funny because when I had admitted my defeat, I had got on social media and I heard some people talking about some plant medicines. And it was funny because in my mind frame at the time, I'm like, I've done everything under the sun. What is this? I've never heard of this, And a friend of mine actually reached out and said that I could benefit from this. And so I did a little bit of research and, looked into what this substance was, and turns out to be that it was a plant medicine. And I decided, what's one more drug essentially. And so I just kind of trusted the situation, and I was like, well, it can't get any worse than what it is, so
Right.
what is this going to do for me? Let's give it a shot. And I'll say I probably dabbled about 12 times. And I was with very experienced people. They were all about the set and setting, positive affirmation, meditation. They had like a little trifecta of how they did things. They burnt sage and, got it all real soothing feeling. They put on this ambient sounds and, some like colors and on the TV, to kind of like induce the experience. And I met myself, I met God, you know what I mean? I did.
People don't realize.
I had a moment.
People don't realize.
I had a moment. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I've used a lot of plant medicine myself as well. Not for addiction issues and stuff, but I know that it is very beneficial in that, and there's several people out there that will speak on it. I just want to mention real quick, if you go and you YouTube search Graham Hancock's Forbidden TED Talk, Graham talks about some plant medicines and how they are helping treat addicts who are hardcore addicts, and they're seeing massive recovery rates with it. And I seen you get all excited, so you obviously know who Graham is.
Yes, I love Graham Hancock.
Same
actually,
here.
he has a quote that talks about music being the medicine of the future, and plant medicine being the medicine of the future, because frequency is everything. They've proven it in science. Emotions have frequency. Positive emotions affect you, negative emotions affect you. And so if you're constantly in this state of turmoil, you're destroying your body.
Absolutely. And it's because you're living in that state of those low vibrations and those low frequencies, and those permeate with all those negative feelings and everything. Yes.
Yeah, and the neuropeptides, I think, is what they're called.
You're gonna you make sure to tune in on March 17th. I'm doing a show at 3 p.m. Eastern that time, and I'm going to actually have a guest on. His name is Shannon Harris. I've had Shannon Harris on the show before when I'd done the show on Blog Talk Radio. Shannon is a very dear friend, but he is actually he works with sound and frequency for healing. And
That's
so
awesome.
we're going to be on, he's going to be on, and we're going to be discussing frequency, vibration, and healing.
That's so neat. There's a place here in Kansas, up in Hutchinson, that they have this, it almost looks like a little coffin, but you lay down in it, they shut you in it, and it's got light bulbs that have all the chakra colors on them. And then they start playing this music. And there was a point in time where I felt like I was soaring through the sky. And I've experienced a lot of different modalities as far as like, the sensory deprivation tank. I've done I've done sound baths. I've done mantra work. There's a lot of different things that I have tried to see, what really works for me to make me feel the best I can.
Right.
And I've really here lately been, I recently got my 200-hour RYT, which is registered yoga trainer.
Nice.
And so I'm sharing that with others now, which is beautiful. But that's also been another a modality that I have benefited quite tremendously off of, is the yoga. But yeah, I mean, spirituality is something that, you can't really put a label on it. You cannot put it into a certain ideology. It is just something that is ever permeating through the world.
Right.
You just have to be your own guide to see what really, works for you, as far as, all my life I've grown up trying to search for God,
Right.
when I was a child, my parents were Christian. We
Same
went
here.
to we went to different, churches. We tried Baptist, we tried non-denomination. We did it all, I feel. But we did settle down in a non-denominational church for a while. And it's beautiful how that kind of recycled. Whenever I was sober, happened to be that Pastor Dave ended up, like, my mom reached out to him and was like, she's not doing good, and he reached out to me, and that man talked to me on the phone for 2 hours while I paced back and forth in my insanity. And he is a major light beacon for me, as far as, showing me what true God source energy is like, because that man does come from a place of complete non-judgment. He is, he has so much unconditional love within him,
Right.
And he never makes you feel bad for what you are going through and what you're experiencing. He justifies it all as, you are where you're supposed to be. This is what God made out for you, and he just reminded me, that spirit would never give me more than what I could handle, and I really am just, I'm also forever in debt for that guy, because it was really beautiful. He baptized me as a kid, and then here he comes back and he's pulling me out of the water, like, essentially.
And see, that's, and I end up working and dealing in a lot of areas that deal with more of other beliefs, other pathways, a lot of paganism pathways and stuff too. And like you said, I go by spirituality. I don't hold to anyone's set religious belief or not, but I grew up in a Christian church. I grew up in a full gospel, non-denominational church, very similar to what you grew up in and stuff, and what you're talking about. And I don't care what religion you adhere to. That does not matter to me. What matters to me is that you have that connection, that divine spiritual connection to God, the source, Allah, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is for you. That's what I want to see people gain, because it's only in that point where I've gotten into that connection with my spiritual self, that I found my true happiness as well. I went through a lot of depression, lots of anxiety, a horrible marriage. And it was when I got out of everything and I said, you know what, I'm getting back on my spiritual path. I'm going to start studying, get back into things, that things turned around for me as well. So, awesome. It turns around people's lives, not just for addiction, but for all. But what
any lost soul, that's all it, if you're lost on your path, it will help you find that path.
Absolutely. And what you was talking about with your pastor, Pastor Dave, I believe he said his name was, is what in the Bible is referred to as agape love. Mm-hmm. It's an unconditional love. No matter where you're at, no matter what's going on, I'm gonna love you, no matter if you're in the gutter or if you're, living on some big posh mansion, whatever. Everybody is loved equally and the same. No one is better than anyone else.
Right. I call it Christ consciousness.
Yes.
But now Like I said, I with the Buddhism, I went down that path because I felt like with me being a Christian child raised, I felt like it was kind of forced upon me.
Yeah.
And so like
same here.
I tried the paganism, and I did. I still resonate with my paganism. I use stones. I have an altar. I use
I was going to say, I even noticed one of your rings has a pagan symbol on it. Yep.
Well, hold on, let me put it the right way.
The right way, yeah.
There we go.
Yep.
Yes. And it's funny because where I work, I'm around a lot of very conservative Christians, and if they eyeball that ring, it's funny. It goes one or two ways. It either goes, so what does that ring mean to you? Or it's
yeah. She doesn't exist in my world. I can't look at her.
She's gonna catch me on fire if I look too long.
So most definitely.
Yeah, so I wear it as a conversation piece because I want to have people ask me what that ring means to me, and I always explain to them, spirit is always on top.
Yep.
And then you have your elements, wind, fire, earth, and water, and they're protected by a ring of circle. Mm-hmm. That ring is of protection. And so, I always explain to them, like if I was to pick a sign to represent God, that sign wouldn't be a cross. It wouldn't be, my Buddhist Om symbol. Right. It would actually be some good old-fashioned sacred geometry, like Fibonacci, flower of life. Those are true scientific patterns that they found repetitively.
Absolutely.
Through science.
Yep.
And so, I have a big Fibonacci that says easy as A, A, B, C, D, and then, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5,
I like it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I mean, like I said, I have kind of an eclectic spirituality. I've taken from every, like a little bit of Christianity, a little bit of, Buddhism. Now, I would say today I probably resonate more as a Hindu who believes in Jesus Christ, just because I have had tremendous benefits from meditation, yoga, mantra work, and that's all based in Hinduism,
right?
And
but
so
the funny thing is, though, if you look through a lot of other spiritual paths, a lot of those same things you'll see come through a lot of the other ones as well. And it was funny because last week I had a guest on named Melvin Nix, and we was discussing what is energy. And we're starting this discussion because we're going to go into, it's the first part of a series that we're going to go into, and we're going to be talking about chakras, the Kundalini energy, and Reiki. And one of the things that we brought up was chi energy, which is mainly pulled out of the Middle Eastern beliefs of chi as life force. But when you look at it, Kundalini energy and chi energy are the exact same thing, just different cultures with a different name.
And so is the Holy Spirit.
Exactly.
Because I actually, here's a fun story for you. I was at work one day, was trying to go to Colorado because I feel like I've done a lot of healing in Colorado. Those mountains, they're just majestic, and I just get so connected when I go out there. It's just a very humbling experience every time I go. And this one particular day, I was, picking up an extra shift so I could make extra money for my trip. And these people, I'm in the phone on the back, trying to talk to a friend about picking up another shift. And I go and I greet this table, and the guy just immediately says, "Do you know Brenda?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'm actually texting her right now trying to pick her shift up." And he said, "Well, I don't know Brenda, but God knows Brenda. And he wanted me to get your attention." And I was like, "Well, you have my attention." And so long story short, I spoke to these people. They were, I don't remember exact what denomination they were, but they're the one that believe in speaking in tongue.
The Pentecostals, but also some of your full gospel non-denominational churches will do that as well.
Right.
But yeah, it's usually It's your Pentecostals that will do the speaking in tongues. I've been in many churches where speaking in tongues happens, and
Right. Well, this exact situation, and this is when I was majorly on my paganism. I had a pocket full of rocks. Every day I set up crystal grids and try to activate them, and that way I could utilize that healing energy. Oh yes, what is that, sodalite?
No, this is actually indigo gabbro, or it's also known as merlinite if it's harvested from a specific mine. Oh,
So
nice. Nice. And then
yeah, I have merlinite on right now, and then I also have.
Is that modellavite?
Yeah.
Yeah. I these. It's funny because I'm in another group on Discord, and we have a lot of spiritual discussions in there. And someone asked, "What's your favorite stones, crystals, and such?" And I told him, I said, "You always find this on me or near me. You always find this on me or near me," which this is a carnelian heart that was given to me from a friend of mine. And she told me, she said, "This is so you know that you're always loved." And then I always have these on me.
Oh yeah.
These are Nordic Runes.
Oh, okay.
And I'll open the bag so you can see them. But they are red Jasper agate.
Ooh, okay.
And these three things I almost always carry on me, or they're near me. I
love some red Jasper. I actually have a bunch of it sitting next to my bed at night. That way I can utilize all that good nurturing energy from it.
and right off to my right side, I have my altar. There's some pictures of it on the. I think I have some pictures of it on the Discord. If not, I'll post some up.
Cool. I have one in my living room, and then I have one in my bedroom. And so
but as you can see, it's an agate, so it's mixed with some other stuff, but it's a red Jasper. The lighting's kind of terrible right now in here, so it's not.
Ooh, yeah, they're all carved on there. That's so neat. I love it. Yeah. I love it.
So yeah, neat. I mean, and then here's the blank. A lot of some of the
runes are blank. Yeah, I know that.
Some of them don't use the blank. I got a set with the blank, which this is known as either the Mystery Rune or the Odin Rune. Mm-hmm. And it means possibilities are unknown and endless.
Yeah.
So
that's beautiful.
It's always a mystery when you pull that one, what's going to happen whenever you're trying to do some rune work.
Yeah, I haven't actually dabbled in runes myself. I mean, okay, so I worked at a metaphysical store for about a year, and I kind of played around with them when I was at work a couple times, but I don't know. I just don't feel like they really resonated with me. I do mess with tarot and oracle cards.
I've got my oracle cards right here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. I love that deck.
Oh, this deck is so gorgeous. Have you seen this deck in person?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Yes, I have.
Oh my god, it is one of the most gorgeous decks I have ever seen, and I absolutely love it. And I'm sorry for anyone that just looked. I realized the camera's mirror, and for some reason on Discord, I do not know how to swap that.
Earth Warriors is what it said.
It's the Earth Warrior Oracle deck.
Yes, that has got some of the most gorgeous artwork I have ever seen.
Mariposa,
it's so bright, so vivid. And
Mariposa is the name of the lady that does the artwork in it, and I've actually found her on Facebook, and like followed some of the work she does. She is a single mother with 2 kids, and one of them is a young child, and she will do her painting with this child in like one of the like harnesses that you hold the baby in on front of you. She'll be painting on giant canvases with the baby just right there, and she'll be painting away, and she does some of the most amazing artwork I have ever seen. For those of you that are in the Discord, I will link the information over on underneath the Breaking Reality. I'll put it over in one of the groups there for people that want to check that out. So you can go check out her Facebook and some of the art that she does, because it's absolutely amazing. And if you haven't joined the Discord, there's actually a link down below that you can click on, both in the Twitch channel, and there's also, when this goes up on YouTube, there will be a link down in the information that you can click on as well. But let's get back to your story. We kind of went off on a tangent on all kinds of different crystals and everything else, but
Hey, that's okay, because that's what it's all about. It's not just one thing. It's
right.
been a plethora of it all. So kind of backtracking. Let's go back to the plant medicine story.
Okay.
I had like I told you, I did it about a dozen times, but I had two specific moments that were very, very profound for me. The first one I had done, we were all in our set and setting, everything, and something just told me, hold your horses. And so I just automatically went into like this fetal mode kind of, thing where I just buried my head down into my lap, and I just held on, and I had an out-of-body experience. I saw myself on that couch, hunkered down as I shot up this tube, and I landed in this room that was like blue electric. Just everything was blue electricity swarming around me. And I was floating, and I didn't have any tattoos on my hands or my feet. And I thought to myself, Lauren, you did it now. You killed yourself. You're dead. And I ripped my headphones out of my head. And that's when I came back into my body simultaneously, because I had scared myself so bad. And I told my friends, I said, I've got to go. I'm dead. I'm dying, and they're like, no, you're fine. Everything is okay. And when they said that, simultaneously, the plant medicine just kind of almost wrapped its arms around me, essentially. Mm-hmm. And kind of was like, no, don't be afraid. Everything is okay. And it just made that whole room just seem so loving and so, I don't even know how to explain it. What had happened when, because my thought process was I need to go to the hospital, right. And the room turned into a hospital, and I was like, what the heck, but at the same time, it was not like a fear kind of thing. It was almost like the plant medicine was like, I will be what you need in this moment, like to make you feel complete, whole, and everything else you deserve, and really after the fact of all that experience, I had about a month, I was really trying to process what I had gone through. And, I really feel like it was just essentially kind of a reset button. Like, starting me over, like, oh yeah, let's just clean the slate here. Everything that you thought before this day is no longer relevant to you anymore. Like, let's rewrite those pathways, and let's rewrite your story. And, I believe in positive affirmation. You have to retrain your brain to think positively, and especially when you do such a big reset like that, it is very important to surround yourself with that good energy, because if you don't, then you can get lost again. You'll stay lost,
Absolutely. It's a funny thing that you use the term of doing a reset, because I've seen, I guess for lack of a better word, a meme that has been out on some of the spiritual boards that will talk about some of the plant medicines, and it will show the person, and then it will show like a shaman or a curandero, whatever, sitting there. And it's like, well, how do I fix myself? And it will say, have you tried unplugging the router and plugging it back in?
Yes, we're energy. We are literally walking computers. We need those resets sometimes,
Absolutely.
And especially when we're cycling through, bad energy and just keep recycling it, sometimes you do need that help rewriting pathways, and science now, thanks to, certain states going legal like California and Colorado, we're able to kind of be more scientific with what's going on with the brain. They're helping people with PTSD. Tremendous. Like, I mean, cutting.
Now I can bring this up because this is actually some medical stuff that's going on. In talking about the plant medicines and some of the stuff that I believe that we're talking about that you used with psilocybin, correct?
Yes.
Okay. In Israel, they have done research over there. They've done scientific research that the use of psilocybin in a certain dosage, I'm not going to go into any of that information, but used on a regular basis can help reset the parts of the brain that causes depression and anxiety.
Yes. I believe that wholeheartedly.
I believe it's John Hopkins Hospital.
Yes.
Was also doing a very deep research with not just psilocybin, but they was doing it with DMT as well.
Mm-hmm. And that is another plant medicine that when I talked about those two experiences, that's what I had tried in that moment.
And what they've been using it for is trying to help cancer patients alleviate some of the stress and the anxieties and issues around dealing with their cancer and their treatment and stuff that's going on. And they're finding
possibly death.
Exactly.
Coming to terms with that, yeah.
Oh yes, absolutely. And they're finding a lot of really great success in this. And now they've got these government sanctioned studies that they're doing. They've gotten approval to do these studies. And I tell you what, guys, I will try to dig up the information on these studies and post it in the Breaking Reality section of the Discord under the suggested reading. So you guys, it'll be under books and suggested reading. So you guys can find that and see what they're actually doing.
Yeah, Maps is one.
Yeah, Maps is
multidisciplinary. Yeah.
Maps,
that's one I really like to follow because they're making major headway in all of this.
Well, they've really been at the forefront of a lot of this and pushing for the studies and this research. But I mean, when we get to it, I mean, you're a member of the Oklahoma Native American Church, the same church that I'm a member of.
Yes. I have to show you. You know how I told you about the synchronicities, right?
Yeah.
Look what day I got my card issued to me on. Let me get it focused.
Oh, nice.
See the numbers? 22222. Yes.
Yep. And I actually have my card right here. And I actually I joined on January 8th of 2016, which was honestly funny enough. I was talking to the head of the branch that I belong to, was about 5 months after they started. So I'm one of the early guys in with that branch.
Hey.
I did not realize that until not too long ago. So I've been with that branch almost since its inception, which is something I think is really cool.
That is awesome.
And I'm actually going through the process of becoming an ordained minister within that branch. I've actually got...
oh my God, yes!
I actually have this massive binder right here.
Oh,
and
that is so neat. That's what I really, that's a goal of mine is I really want to get involved with the church. I want to bring an ONAC branch to Kansas. I think Kansas needs healing really, really bad.
Is there not an ONAC branch in Kansas?
No, there's not. The closest one is either Colorado or Utah for me.
Really? Now, Utah would be probably the mother church because that's where they're out of. The mother branch.
Yep.
And I tell you what, those guys at the mother branch, the men and women over there at the mother branch, they are amazing people. I got to do a 3-series interview with James Flaming Eagle Mooney, who's the co-founder. And I tell you what, that was such an enlightening time to sit down with James and have those discussions and stuff with him and to hear his stories and to hear everything going on. And he's been encouraging me to get a hold of Lone Buck from the mother branch and do some stuff with Lone Buck as well. So hopefully I'll be talking with him soon and we'll have Lone Buck on the show.
Me. I reached out to ONAC and I talked to, Little Otter is who I talked to originally, just to kind of see what branches were closest to me.
Yes, Little Otter is amazing. Little Otter is one of the people responsible for getting James where he is today.
That's awesome. Yeah, James actually friended me on Facebook and I went ecstatic because I knew who he was, I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy is, kind of an idol to me, because of everything he's done for plant medicines.
Take the opportunity to watch those 3 episodes of the podcast. They're on the YouTube.
I've watched 2 of them. I didn't know there was a third, but
okay.
I have watched the first 2.
Okay, the 3 of them. The first one is he talks about the history of the indigenous people in North and South America. The second one, he talks about the foundation of the church and everything that they went through with all the legal battles and everything that they went through. And then the third one, he talks about the purpose and the mission of the ONAC.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm definitely going to have to check out the most recent one, because I did watch the whole thing, and that's what really, I mean, it was such an amazing video to watch, you know, and hear his story on how he paved the way, you know, for sacraments and everything. I just think it's a beautiful thing, you know,
and I feel so blessed and so honored that he sat down and he shared that with all of us through the show.
Right.
You know, he's done interviews and stuff before, but for him to sit down like he did and to share that information in the way that he did, I feel so humble and so honored to have had that experience.
Right,
it is something I will never forget. You know, we had, you know, little chats before the show and little chats after the show and stuff. And it was just great and getting to know James, and I still talk with him off and on and stuff. I don't bother him a whole lot because he's got all of his grandkids, his kids and grandkids, and, you know, he's always busy with them, and, you know, Linda, his wife and stuff. You know, they're always busy with something with family and stuff, and Linda's still active as a medicine person, so she's doing a lot of work and stuff as well. But you know, it's one of those things. James has hit the point to where he's been able to retire out, and he's earned it. He deserves it. He deserves to be able to sit back and enjoy the grandkids, and, you know, do what he does.
For sure. You know, and now he can just watch what he has created just thrive and prosper. There was one day that I was, you know, just connecting with spirit in the car. It's like one of my favorite things to do when I'm driving. And so
there's not much else to do.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's funny because you know, I talked to you about my numbers and the synchronicities and all that, and it was just absolutely beautiful how it happened, you know, because I'm sitting here praying, asking, you know, show me which way I need to go. I'm not creating my path anymore. I'm following the path that is designed for me.
Right.
And you know, it was just beautiful because right then a car switched into my lane and his tag number was 033 NAC, and when you look at it as a whole, it says ONAC with 33 in the middle, which to me 33 is a master number of manifestation.
Yep.
And so, you know, I looked at it as like you're going to create this with the ONAC, you know, this is your path, you know. And, you know, that's why I can't wait, you know, like I said earlier to you, I can't wait to begin this path. You know, I've had the card for a year now, but I haven't actually I haven't got to do any ceremonies because I had a baby and, you know, COVID happened. And,
right.
You know, and so, and that's, you know, I feel like, you know, when it's meant to be, it'll be, but
how far away are you from Kentucky?
Huh?
How far away are you from Kentucky?
I want to say about 13 hours. I know there's one in Kentucky. It's like something mountain or
Peaceful Mountain Way. That's the branch I actually belong to.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Demian and Tina Gover are the medicine persons with it. Demian is the chief minister of the Peaceful Mountain Way. If you would like, I can put you in contact with them on Facebook.
Sure.
They are actually an ayahuasca branch.
Okay, that's fine. That's something that I've been. I'm sorry.
I was going to say that's a sacrament that they specialize in, and
okay.
And just so people know, these sacraments, these things are used in a sacred sacramental manner. If you are a member of the ONAC and you start using them in a manner that is not such, the ONAC has very strict rules of guidelines and a code of ethics and how we are to operate as members, and the people that are also medicine persons and facilitators and everything. We have a very strict code of ethics that we have to adhere to, or we lose any protections that we have in using these as sacraments. And so just putting that out there, and that's part of what this binder is. I have all the code of ethics and everything all printed out in there, because that's part of my ministerial exam, is I have to study these and know them.
Right. Of course. Yeah. Because if you're just willy-nilly doing whatever you want, it's not a sacrament,
Right.
It's not, you're not going through ceremony,
Right.
Ceremony is a very important, like when I was first introduced to sacraments, I was very, like I said, I've only had my ONAC card, so I was very elementary to the way it is. But because of the path that Spirit is guiding me to, I have got to go through this. I have to go through these processes, because I want to be protected. I want to do things the right way. And I want people to be protected and liberated in their path. I don't want to do anything that's going to harm another person, And so that's why when I decided that I wanted to heal people the way I healed myself, I had to find a legitimate way to do it. And so, first I was going to go through maps, but I'm not a scientific person. I don't like paperwork, I don't want to have to jot down every minute and every second that I did things, I'm very spiritual.
Maps is a great organization. I love Maps, and I'm all about supporting Maps and the work that they do and the research they do. Mm-hmm. But like you said, they look at it from a very scientific standpoint. Where I think a big part of these plant medicines is the spirit that is involved in the medicine. It is 100%. The spirit that is involved in the plants that you are working with. And you'll hear people talk about each plant medicine has a different spirit. It has a different feel. It has a different connection. And they will speak to you differently. Speaking of,
it's funny you say that, because my two sacraments that I used was the DMT and then the psilocybin. And I will tell you, I tell people my story. I said, DMT taught me to love myself.
Oh yes, absolutely.
While psilocybin taught me to love the world again.
Right.
And it was like it took away every jaded feeling I had about my reality around me. And then, the DMT made me reassess myself and what was really important to me, and so they were definitely two different energies, that's for sure.
Most definitely.
And I'll be quite honest with you, I would probably I'm definitely looking forward to doing an ayahuasca ceremony. I'm a little nervous, I'm not gonna lie, but
come here.
One sacrament I don't think I will ever partake in again would be the DMT. I feel like it served its purpose for me, and I don't need it
just so
anymore.
in ayahuasca, it is a combination of DMT with an MAOI, but it is differently. Right. It's different than just the straight DMT extractions.
Exactly. Yes, it's DMT extraction is like a 5 to 10 minute experience, while ayahuasca is like a 10 to 12 hour experience.
Well, it varies. Most of it can be 4 to 8 hours. It can go longer. It can go shorter. It depends on how much you consume.
Okay.
And how powerful the brew is itself. Gotcha. I personally have had ceremonies go 12 to 16 hours, but I've had them as short as 3.
Okay.
So, I mean...
and again, I'm sure that just has to do with, a person's healing and their probably resistance to it, because I know that sometimes I personally is like, okay, you're resisting this. You're just resisting you just need to let go and let it happen, let this experience happen. As a matter of fact, I just recently, I was doing some mantra work at this local studio that I work at. The guy that was leading the chant was he took us through a mantra. It's Hindu based. It's just kind of a little prayer to protect the person chanting, brings abundance into the life and really connects you to divine source. And then afterwards, after we do this little, jagad, go through that whole thing, then we began doing this Ma chant. And I was setting, I'll show you, had my foot up like this, and then I had this foot next to it. So let me see if I can kind of So my feet were like this.
Okay.
You know, grounded on the floor like that.
Okay.
And so, and then when you have your knee up, you put your arm on your knee like this, and then you wrap your hand around your ear like you're listening. And this exact, pose, position, asana is what it is called. And then the mantra, there was 5 females in the room and then 1 male. And we began this. We did 5 minutes on the left side, 5 minutes on the right side. And I want to say about 3 minutes in, I started to feel like I was on a merry-go-round. And now I will say that this was 100% sober. I was not on anything. There was no assistance. I mean, I maybe had some coffee, but that's right. The only chemical that I had in my body at the time. And I felt spinning, and of course at the moment I was like, okay, just experience this, let it be, and then the more I felt like I was spinning in my mind's eye, I had my eyes closed. So in my mind's eye, it started looking like stars, and they were in a vortex, and they started to spin around. And then the vortex began to spin so much that it opened up in the center and had this black hole in the middle of it. And the more I said Ma, I felt my body, like I started to not feel my body, and it was just my consciousness. And I almost felt myself leave my body, but I'm a mom of a 7-month-old baby who I'm breastfeeding. And so I'm like, the only thing I thought in my head was like, you can't leave your baby. You got to be able to get back home to him. And so I pulled back, and I was really, really shaky, and I had to take some water. And it was funny too, because they continued with their ma, and I'm like, oh my God, this is the first time I felt like I can't handle this. Like I need to maybe step out of the room, because I felt like I was going to leave my body.
Right.
And, I don't know what that was. A lady in the thing, she said, you should have just let it happen and experienced it, because what was ever on the other side was going to be very beneficial for you. Could have been very beneficial for you. And so, I've been continuing with the Ma, just to see if I can rehash that experience and actually see what is in that vortex, because there's a guy, Alex Gray, and his wife who talk about going.
I know Alex Gray and his wife. For those of you who don't know who Alex Gray is, I guarantee most of you probably know Alex Gray's work. He does all the cover art for the band Tool.
Yep.
So if you've ever seen any of their albums, Alex Gray's artwork is always on their albums. But he does some amazing art.
Yes,
and he's very, very big into the spiritual, a spiritual connection and stuff too. They do, him and his wife do some amazing stuff. Yeah. I'll let you continue on with what you were saying though.
No, but it was he talks about, him and his wife get into these states just by doing breath work. And that's where he is able to envision all these beautiful artworks as he goes to these places. He actually sees them in his mind. And so, I know that it's something that it's this is a new door. I just have to, keep being persistent with it.
There's a thing called I want to make sure I say it right. Holotropic Breathwork, I believe is what it is.
Wim Hof.
Holotropic.
Oh,
okay. the
Wim
Wim Hof techniques and stuff are very, very powerful and stuff as well. Wim Hof, if you guys have not looked into Wim Hof, he does some really amazing stuff. But Wim Hof is going to get you cold.
Yeah,
he's gonna tell you to go take a cold shower, to go jump in a frozen lake or something.
Go just set in some ice.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff with Wim Hof too. But it's I believe it's called holotropic breathing is the technique that's used, and you can actually enter into a shamanic state through that breathing process alone. Aubrey Marcus has a video on YouTube where he talks about some of this stuff. He has a video, it's called The Psychedelic Experience. and he talks about how to enter into some of these states through things like deep meditation, like really, really intense meditative states, through holotropic breathing, through doing different things. He even goes in and talks about, like when Jesus went out into the wilderness and fasted for 40 days and entered into a very divine state where he was in a very deep connection on a spiritual state. And that's when he was tempted, and he went through that trial during that time frame. But then he talks about, it's funny because Alex says, doing some of these things is like burning down your house to bake a loaf of bread, is what he says. and he says, and then he kicks over to talking about plant medicines to get to the same states. Now, I love plant medicines. I do. My very first experiences with shamanic states and these deeper spiritual states was through meditation with rhythmic drumming.
Ooh.
Yeah. So that was my earliest practice with any of this, and that's where I gained some knowledge and some stuff with it, and that happened in my early 20s. I was studying some of Sandra Ingram's stuff, and I actually was doing going through a book of hers that had different techniques and stuff, and it had an audio CD with it that you could listen to different drumming tracks and stuff, and it was going through learning how to travel and doing shamanic journeys is what it was called. The name of the book.
I've seen that book. It's a book and it has the little disc in the back.
Yep.
Yes, that's a great book.
Yep. I also have another book that I got from the place that I got it from that came with another book for lucid dreaming.
Cool. Yeah.
So
yeah, I've done some lucid dreaming I've tried lucid dreaming. I had one experience. I like my body, I think.
It's like I don't want to leave it.
Like out of body experiences, I'm like shaking in my bones.
Well, be prepared if you do ayahuasca then.
I know. I know. That's why I'm like, okay, it'll be, divine timing, and so I haven't really been rushing or pushing the process.
And I can tell you that if you do go down to the Peaceful Mountain Way to work with them on an Aya ceremony, Demian and Tina and Sandy and Pat and the crew that's down there, they're top notch. The Demian and Tina are the medicine persons that are down there, but they have facilitators that work with them. Sandy and Pat are amazing ladies. They do great work, and they're going to be right in there making sure that you're comfortable, that you're, if you start to have any problems, they're going to be right there with you.
Right,
and they're gonna walk you through this process, and they're gonna make sure that you're all right.
Right. And I know that, and that's one thing that's very reassuring to me. And it's kind of beautiful how this whole thing happened. Is I didn't know anything about ONAC, and I was working at a metaphysical store, and this lady came in and she was like, well, I'm getting ready to do my first ayahuasca ceremony. I just want to get some crystals to kind of ground me because I've been feeling rather, and I'm like, okay, and she, we had a great conversation because I knew that this was the path that I was going towards.
Right.
But, I didn't share that with her. She just opened up to me. And so I asked her to write down Peaceful Mountain Way because I didn't know this was the first time that I ever heard of it being in the States. Because, when I first thought I was going to have to do this journey, I was like, well, I'm going to Peru or, somewhere.
I'm going out to the Amazon jungle. I'm going to live in a hut.
Yeah, And so once I found out that we actually had these facilities and these abilities here in the United States, I was like, this is it. This is where I'm supposed to be. And so it's kind of funny because once I got my ONAC, I contacted Little Otter, and she directed me to the branches of, down in New Mexico, the mother branch. And then there's one in, I think, Colorado too. I'm not too familiar with what its name is, but, she, directed me those ways. But now that you're saying this, I'm thinking that maybe I need to just stick with Peaceful Mountain because of the fact that that was what was first spoken to me,
I know Demian. Demian is my mentor. Me and Demian talk quite a lot. We've had deep discussions. And I funny thing is, Sandy's husband is also a streamer on Twitch, so I've actually become really good friends with Sandy's husband through Twitch.
Neat. See, I just love I love what the internet has brought us. You know, we are able to connect with people, like-minded people, you know, because the thing is like, I know maybe like 2 or 3 people here in Kansas that I can have these kind of conversations. But as far as like trying to talk to some of my other friends, like, you know, they're not on that level as I am. You know, they've got different paths, and so it's kind of like speaking a foreign language to them. Sometimes they're like,
trust me.
Me
trying to talk to this about my family looks at me like, what kind of crazy evil stuff are you into? What are you doing?
Yeah. Well, my parents are a little bit more open-minded and accepting because of, I think, just of, you know, them watching my journey and watching me really like dig myself out of the trenches. They just kind of trust me now, you know, like they're like, yeah, it kind of sounds crazy, but like, you've done a lot of
hey, this is
work,
better than where she was before, so hey.
Right, yeah. And so I think that they're kind of a little bit more like, I mean, my dad one day said, you know, I just didn't ever envision you being on this path. He said, but, you know, kiddo, if this is it, it's a beautiful story. It really is.
Absolutely. And it is a beautiful story. And I tell you what, after the show, if you stay on the call with me after we hang up, I'll give you some of the information, and I'll send you over some links and stuff to some of the groups and stuff that you can get connected with these guys.
Thank you. Yes. Because like I said, you know, when I got my card, the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the churches were shutting down. They weren't doing any ceremonies. And I know some are starting to do ceremony again, but
Peaceful
it's
Mountain
very
Way,
limited.
Peaceful Mountain Way is doing ceremonies. They're doing some of the group ceremonies as well as the individual ceremonies and stuff. They you know, of course, they were in Kentucky. There came a point in time where they shut down all the churches in Kentucky, you know, not being able to do any kind of meetings or anything. When they opened them back up, they you know, slowly came back around and starting to do ceremonies and stuff again, and you know, doing the group ceremonies and stuff. But they're very cautious with what they do. Their first and foremost concern is people's health and safety.
Right, of course. And that's what we have. I mean, that's what it's all about, is caring for their best interest.
But yeah, and absolutely, that's how these guys are. So I know we've kind of diverged from your story some, though. Do you want to get back into talking about more of your path and what went on? So you said that you had the experiences with plant medicine. You was telling us about the first one where you went into the room of the blue electric.
Yeah, and then from then on, it was kind of like a realization, because, you know, of course, when you're experiencing this, you're having so many thoughts and going through your head like, oh my gosh, you know, I was like, you really did it now, Lauren. You really killed yourself. Did you really want to die? You know, and you had so much in your life, you know, and that made me realize, you know, at the time I only had 2 children. Now I have 4. But, you know, at the time I was like, your children, you have to live for your children. Like you got to be there for them. And that was a major realization for me in that moment, was like, why are you living to die? You have so much to live for. You have so much life to live, you know? And before, I had just had so much guilt and shame, you know, like I never thought I was going to get back those 2.5 years with my kids. I felt like our relationships were all forever going to be this, like, you know, broken, you know, just because, you know, my parents had to step in and be mom and dad for, you know, those 2 years. And I, you know, every time I would come around my kids, they would always be like, Mom, I miss you so much. And then that's when the guilt came on, and then I'd want to go right back out into the streets, you know, and to numb that guilt and that shame, you know, and you know, you really just gotta go through the motions. You know, emotions are liquid, you know, they're not solid, they're liquid. And once you flow through them and you experience them, that is where the healing goes. That is where the healing comes.
I want to bring up a point that you're saying right there, and I want to touch on that in a deeper way. you're talking about dealing with the guilt and the shame and working through those. What you're talking about is doing what's referred to as shadow work.
Yes,
A lot
exactly.
of people don't necessarily understand what shadow work is or how important it is in the healing process. If you do not face those dark demons, if you are not willing to get into that dirty, icky, muddy mess that you're dealing with, healing can't really start until you get into that. And I tell a lot of people, if you're really serious about starting down a healing process through a path of spirituality and through a path of working with plant medicines and stuff, don't expect it to be, all sunshine and rainbows and cotton candy clouds and, pretty flowers and everything else. It's going to get dirty. It's going to get messy, and you're going to have to do that shadow work as part of the healing. If you don't do that shadow work, if you don't get in there and face your own personal demons, you're going to stay in some of these cycles that you're trying to break. And it's when you get in there and you get face to face with this and get really nitty gritty with that darkness.
Yeah, you have got to honor your demons. You don't have to be friends with them, but you have to honor them because they are what are going to help create you,
they're part of you. I mean,
right.
It's the whole balance of everything, the yin and the yang. You've got the light and you got the dark. I've talked about it on the show before. People, we all have feminine energies and we all have masculine energies within us. Every single person. And I talk about these things, but you got to understand that those are all aspects of us. You cannot have light without dark. You've got to have they exist together, and it's learning how to put them into unison and into balance, and to
embrace
have them.
It.
Yeah,
you have to embrace it, because if you try to pretend it's not there, you're not going to have any real outcome.
Right. And it just kind of grows and festers when you pretend it's not there. It's like an infection. If you don't treat it properly, it's going to get worse.
Yeah, it just keep, like you said, cycling. You keep cycling through it. And that's the thing is, like, you will keep going through experiences until you have a realization of why you're going through them.
Exactly.
Why you keep attracting that same experience into your life is because you haven't healed, or not healed, but you haven't learned from what that experience is supposed to give you.
I was going to say, if you look at a lot of the different sacred symbols, the spiral is a very important one, and it's for that very exact reason. The spirals mean that you're going to continue going around and around and around on this journey until you learn the lesson that you're meant to learn, and then it will finally come to an end.
Right.
That's when that lesson will come to an end, and you'll have made the full cycle.
Right. And I definitely have seen that in my recovery process. I have people that still to this day from my there was a period in time where I had to block everyone. I had to, like in the 12 step, you have to get rid of your playmates and your playgrounds. You got to cut those out. They say that from the gate. And that is one thing that I have taken from the 12 step is, you can't sit here and say I'm sober and still vibrate on that same frequency and associate with people vibrating on that same frequency, because you're just going to draw yourself back in.
Right.
You have to break away from those things in order to ascend. And that is something that I, to this day, like before, of course I blocked everybody that I knew from my past, no, can't have that. But now I'm having things come back around, people pop up. And I know it's because I am coming from a place of truly healed experience. And I feel confident enough that I can have these interactions with these people. And it's not just to go back to that level. It's now that I am so solid in my energy vibration, and these people are wanting to come up into this energy and be at this level.
You're an example for them to look at, to realize that they can do that. And more than likely, the reason they're coming back around is because part of your path is going to be to either help them or to direct them or to at least show them that this is possible.
100%. I believe that full, and that's another thing that Spirit is teaching me, is to have faith and trust.
Right.
That I am protected, because it's not just been one person, it's actually been two people specifically that have come up, and I have bad experiences with both of these people. And what I say bad experiences, but it's just when I was down and out and we were really close, and so I'm like, I don't really want to rehash any of that, know. But I pulled away, I detached from the moment, and I connected with Spirit. But I connected with Spirit, and it was a moment where I heard, you have grown so much, you don't have anything to worry about. You can now be the beacon for these people if they truly want to go that route. You are solidified in your journey. You're not backstepping. Right. You're moving forward. And so I heard that message, and I was like, you are sure right.
Right. Well, it's like I said, with the ministries that I had worked with in the past, where they had the 12-step programs in there. Like I said, some of the guys who I saw coming in there that were court ordered to attend 12-step programs are now done with their court order time. They're still showing up, and these guys are taking the roles as leaders in there, helping other people, going, hey, look, I did this. I know you're here. I know you may be here not of your own free will because you're ordered by the courts to be here, so you're here just meeting a court-mandated order. But if you want out of this cycle, if you want out of this hole, there's hope. You can do it. And it's a beautiful process. I had a friend of mine who he was I won't go into names or anything, but he's a good buddy of mine that's tied in with the one ministry that I'm specifically thinking of. And he was he got hooked into meth. And he got into it because he liked the energy it gave him. It allowed him to work longer hours. It allowed him to do more things. He was able to function and do stuff nonstop that he wanted to go do. And he got into liking the high and the cycles and everything. Well, he got arrested. He happened to be at someone's place that was cooking it, and he got arrested. And because he had a lighter in his pocket that had his name on it that had fallen out into the couch, they busted him for being part of the crew that cooked, because they found one of his items on the property, like he had been staying there on a regular basis. He told me that was the greatest thing that ever happened to him, because when he went to jail for that, that's when he got clean. That's when he got sober. That's when he started turning his life back around. And there's some more behind his story of how he got into it and everything. But I've talked with a lot of people in my life that they'll see someone that's an addict and they look down on them, or they look at them as well, I don't know what's wrong with them. Why'd they start doing that? And I tell the people, I said, hey, no one that I've never known that's been addicted woke up one day and said, you know what I feel like doing today? I feel like getting hooked on meth or heroin and going into the path of being an addict. I think that'd be a brilliant plan. Let's do that. I have never once heard anyone do that. What I've heard is people who are dealing with traumas and dealing with emotional pain and dealing with hurt and tragedy, and they don't know how to deal with it. Yeah. How exactly. And they're looking for something to help. They're looking for something to deal with it, whether it's a physical pain. The opiate pandemic and crisis is horrible in this country. And we see a lot of people get hooked on the opiates, and then next thing you know, they're down a dark path. Right. Because all they're trying to do is take care of excruciating pain that they're dealing with every day. And the next thing we know, they're down the path of an addict. And that's not what they wanted. That's not what they started off with. And like I said, no one I've ever met that's dealt with addiction issues has ever said, I woke up one day and said, hey, I want to become an addict. They said, you know, I was dealing with this. I was dealing with something and I didn't know how to cope. And I was looking for anything that could help me learn how to cope.
Right. That's 100%, you know. A little bit background on where I was. My mom was involved in a really bad car wreck at the age of 11. She was unconscious for 14 days. It took her 2 years to recover from that car wreck. Meanwhile, I had to go live with my father, who was an alcoholic. He didn't know how to raise a daughter. He did not know how to, you know, empathize with me and be that, you know, really crutch I needed in the moment, you know, for my mom. You know, he was essentially trying to get himself afloat, you know, barely keeping his head above water, you know. And there was a lot of experiences that I have, you know, remembering my father, you know, falling down the stairs. You know, we would be over at my cousin's house, you know, and he would get drunk with, you know, his cousin and, you know, drive home drunk with me and go like, you know, here's the stop sign, and he'd be clear out in the intersection because he was so drunk he couldn't drive, you know. And I had all these memories as a kid. And I remember at one point the curiosity got to me of like, why does he like this stuff so much? You know, why is it such an amazing thing for him, you know? And when my mom and dad finally separated, he went out to Tennessee, and I saw him one summer and then never saw him again. And, you know, I tried to reach out to him, and he just didn't want anything to do with it, you know? And I think a lot of that rejection, a lot of that hurt and all that, you know, it's that
emotional trauma that came with it.
Right. Yeah. And so, you know, of course, I'm like, well, why is he so, you know, let me see what this is all about, you know? And so that's why I started drinking, is because I was curious to why he was so enamored with it, you know? And and then, you know, of course, my mom, you know, she thought I was a troubled teen and I needed help. And, you know, I was sneaking out of the house to go drink and things like that. And so she didn't know what to do. You know, she was all on her own. It was just me and her. And so she thought the best thing for me was to get me into rehab. And the rehab that they ended up going to was this Barati Stop program here in Kansas, which I'm sure people have benefited from it, but in the moment, it was not what I needed. You know, the doctors were trying to dope me up on medicines. I didn't need medicines. I needed to process. I needed a counselor. I needed a psychotherapist to, you know, really dig down into these feelings. But instead of that, they just, you know, kind of muffled it all with these pills, you know?
Right.
And so that's why I'm very passionate about, you know, like holistic health, you know, not doing the pharmaceutical route, you know, because it's just chemicals. You know, if you have a chemical imbalance in your brain and you add more chemicals, you're just going to create a more imbalance, you know, a dependency upon these chemicals to try to balance you. When you can balance, Spirit has made, you know, Spirit is amazing. You know, you can heal yourself with Spirit. You know, if you truly connect with that Spirit, that divine source, you know, you can heal yourself. I'm living proof, you know, that you don't need a medication to be normal. You don't need.
No, I do just want to stop right there before, because just for safety reasons and stuff. If anyone is on medications, don't stop them cold turkey or anything like that. You need to work with your medical professionals in this.
Yes, please.
Yes. So if you're dealing with something, by all means, please keep using your medications as you're told so, and start working with your medical professionals. Work with a counselor, work with a therapist, work with your spiritual leaders, whoever it is, whether it's a pastor, a shaman, you know, a priest, whatever. Work with them in conjunction with your medical professionals and stuff, and you got to take certain processes and precautions. But yes, you can heal through Spirit. You can heal through these processes, and it is possible. I do believe it is possible to get off a lot of these medications. I no longer take pharmaceuticals unless it's for, you know, something like an infection or something like that. And I will on occasions take some pain medication. A lot of people know this. I was actually in the ER Sunday night. I'm dealing with an abdominal hernia that's causing me some issues. And so I had to go in and get some medication to be able to get through and deal with some of the stuff. So, I mean, it's something that's eventually going to have to deal with surgery, but I'm having issues with the surgeons and stuff, so...
Well, I will pray that everything goes safely for you.
Thank you so much. But yeah...
And I do want to retract my statement, because it was a very broad statement, okay? I mean, as far as like addiction goes, you don't need medicine to get off your addiction, except for if you're on like an opiate, you do need something so you don't have seizures or anything like that.
Right, so you don't go through the detox, the detox issues and stuff.
Right, and now, and I believe in Western medicine.
There are amazing plant medicines to help you go through those detox issues. I had a really severe infection in 2019, had a surgery in June of 2016 that had me laid up for almost 6 months. I was on heavy doses of pain medication because I had a major surgical wound from where they done surgery to help deal with that. And in all of that, I ended up... I wasn't addicted to the opiates, but my body had developed a chemical dependency to them because I had been on them so long. It wasn't a psychological matter, but I had to step down off of using these. And stupidly, because I left the nursing care facility where I was at and went into home health care, and I did not have a primary care physician at the time, they more or less cut me off cold turkey from them.
Oh no!
Oh yeah!
Oh my God, that is not fair. They could have killed you.
Exactly. They told me I needed to find a primary care physician. Well, at that point in time, trying to find a primary care was going to take me 6 to 7 weeks, if not more. I fortunately knew of plant medications that I could use to work through this process, and I use certain plant medications to help deal with the withdrawal issues from the pain medications.
Neat. What plant? I know that there's a but I didn't know which one is it. I've heard of is it ibogaine?
No, that's ibogaine, and that's great for that is not a plant that's sanctioned through the ONAC as a sacrament.
Okay.
But it is something that is really amazing. I've seen a lot of good research on that, and a lot of the benefits from it, and iboga or ibogaine.
Yeah.
It's really, really beneficial in helping addicts get off of whatever it is that they're addicted to. And I do not personally have experience from it. I only know from what I've talked to people about. They say basically you go into about a 24-hour long introspective conversation with your inner self, and
that's what I heard.
And your inner self calls you out on all your crap. Flat out, it's just being called out on all your crap. And now
doesn't it help with addiction or withdrawals as well? I thought it like kind of forces you through that withdrawal.
I honestly do not know that aspect. What I used was kratom.
Oh my gosh, I've worked with, well, I haven't personally used kratom, but I worked at a CBD shop who sold kratom.
Yeah.
And I have had I've heard so many beautiful success stories from kratom.
Yep. And I still continue to use kratom off and on because I deal with chronic pain issues, and I have learned how to use kratom to work with, pain spikes and stuff. Like when I can tell real bad pain spikes coming in, I try to keep kratom in the house, and I will use it at that point in time. I know how to work with it. Anyone who is going to work with kratom and use kratom, please research, study, research. Try to find someone who knows about it. Talk with them. While kratom is so much more beneficial and it can help with a lot of the withdrawals and stuff from opiates, and it can work as a replacement for them. There can be some dangers and side effects to using it. It can, and overconsumption and stuff, it can be bad for your liver. It can be bad for your body in some different ways. So you have to really know what you're doing. Work with your medical professionals. Make sure that if you're using these kinds of plant medications and stuff, that you're talking with your doctors, that they're aware. Like when I started working with ayahuasca, I was so blessed that my primary care physician at that time, I went in and I straight down and looked at him, and his name was James as well. And I didn't call him by his last name. I called him by his first name and stuff. Me and him had a real personal one-on-one, really friendly connection and stuff. And I told him, I said, James, I said, this is what I'm doing. I said, I've researched it, I've studied it, and I'm going to be doing this. And certain medications you may want to give me will cause interactions with this. And I can let you know what those are, and I can tell you what's going to interact. And we can choose my treatment options and stuff that I'll work with you around this, because this is a sacrament that I'm going to be using. And he got fully on board with it. He told me, he's like, you know what you're doing. And I came to him with a lot of information. I had studied it not just from a spiritual standpoint, but from a scientific and a technical standpoint. So I could take this information to him to work with my medical professionals. And I think that's really important for anyone who's working with these medications, with plant medicines and stuff, to do, is to learn this, because there can be interactions with medications you're taking.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
like any of the serotonin, SSRIs,
yes.
They're very...
Yes, and so it's very important that when you're working with these plant medicines, and on both sides of it, whoever it is that you're working with these plant medicines, the medicine person that you're working with, you need to be open and honest with them about what kind of medications you're on. And I can say from my experiences and stuff, with people down at the Peaceful Mountain Way, they're not going to judge you. They just want to make sure they're keeping you safe.
Right.
If you're... And Tanner, hush it, Bubby. He is barky tonight. But they're there to make sure that they're going to try to keep people as safe as possible. And that's
important, because
right.
You don't want to cause any more harm than you already have to yourself,
Exactly.
And I think that's why with my situation, I'm not rushing this, ceremonial process. I honestly want to do sweat lodge before I do anything.
Oh, sweat lodges are beautiful. I got to experience my first sweat lodge at 15 years old.
Oh my gosh, that's so neat.
Yeah, with the Lakota Sioux chief at a campgrounds that I was working at. An All Nations gathering had come in, and a Lakota Sioux chief had invited me to do a sweat lodge with them, and we done what they would consider a normal sweat the first night, and then he invited me back the second night to do a warrior sweat with them. And that's also when I had my first experience with psychedelics, was peyote afterwards.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, so, and the funny thing is, my parents did not know about that until I was 40. I never told them. And when I told my mom, she's like, oh my God, Joshua, you mean you was doing drugs out there? And I'm like, no, we wasn't doing drugs. It was done in a sacramental way.
Right. And I am a firm believer that if you're going to mess with any of these things, you need to be in that sacramental, then in that ceremonial state.
Yes.
You cannot just play around. You know what I
right.
mean? You can't. it's not just another high. You know what I mean? This is a key, a tool,
Right.
something that is going to help you in your ascension in this world.
And these things have been used as sacraments for thousands upon thousands of years. And, you know, he is so barky tonight. And there's always going to be someone out there that's going to take any of this stuff and they're going to misuse it. And that's one of those things that I don't like. I belong to a lot of different groups that discuss things, and when I see guys are like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna do some DMT and I'm gonna blast off and I'm gonna trip," and I'm just like, you're looking at this in the total complete wrong way. And if you would stop and look at this from the right perspective, hey, come here, hey, Tanner, come here. Come over here, goofball. Now stop barking.
Oh, now you get the kisses.
Yeah, he chews on my beard to give me kisses. But, you know, I'll tell these guys that you need to look at this from a spiritual, sacramental standpoint, because that's what these are. Right. It's very important that you look at them from the standpoint. Yeah, you may take them, you may see pretty visions, you might see neat colors, you might have some fun experiences with them. But when you start using these in a very sacramental way, that's where you get a lot of the lessons. That's where you get the healing. That's where you get it. And the thing is, a lot of the guys who are using these, a lot of the people that I see that are using these, and they're talking about it that way, they're using it as an escape tool. Mm-hmm. And they're seeking what this can give them, but they don't know how to use it because they're not being guided properly.
Right. Intention. You have to set an intention.
It's that setting like you talked about earlier. You know, having the right atmosphere is important, but going into it with the right mindset is every bit as important as making sure that you're in a safe location, that you're somewhere where, you know, you're comfortable, you're around people that are going to
make you feel safe.
You feel safe. You know that no one there is going to harm you or take advantage of you in this state.
Right.
You know,
because it's a very vulnerable state.
Exactly.
You're doing shadow work. You're digging into your inner being, you know, and so you need to feel safe. You need to have that comfort zone and that comfort blanket, you know, because there's going to be times where you just want to just run, you know, and you can't because you've committed and you've submitted to this experience.
And there has been experiences of people out there offering, you know, these things as sacraments and using them to take advantage of people in that vulnerable state. And that's one of the things that, you know, anyone that's going to get into working with these sacraments, please research who you are working with.
Stick with ONAC.
Yeah, I mean,
stick with ONAC.
And the ONAC, if they find out someone is not up to those standards and that they're doing those kinds of practices, they kick them out. They will not put up with that. The Mother Church will remove their membership. They'll remove their charter, and they won't stand by them. They are very, very strict about that. You know, and that's something that they're very on top of. But not necessarily even just ONAC, because there's some good medicine people out there under other different branches of things. Like there's a couple different ayahuasca groups and stuff that are more traditional Peruvian, like the Santa Diame, I think's what it is, and stuff. Some of those groups are good groups. And you know, there's people that choose to go down to Peru to work with the curanderos down there. Make sure you're finding a good one. Make sure you're finding a trusted one. Make sure you're finding one that's just not doing this to make some money.
Right. Yeah.
You know, make sure you're
I
going.
watched a documentary about that actually.
Yeah.
There's a lot because of the hype that the plant
Yep.
medicines are now getting. There are people trying to take advantage of people that don't know what they're doing and haven't researched enough, and they're not
Right.
getting the experience they should be because they're just going with somebody that's money based and not spirit based.
Right. And in the future, I may have a guest on in the future that will talk about some experiences they had with someone who with 5-MeO DMT, which is extracted from the toad, the
Oh.
bufo toad.
Yeah, and that's like I heard is like instead of it being a journey, it's more of a void, I've heard.
I would really have to talk with the people that I know that have worked with it, because I personally never have.
Yeah,
The people that I know have said that it's been a beautiful experience working with it. But they also was working with a guy who was they didn't know at the time, but he was using it to take advantage of people. He was using it to mislead people. He was using it to exploit people. And he wasn't who he was said he really was.
That's just heartbreaking.
Yeah. And so my whole reason of bringing this up is to just tell people, make sure you go through someone that is respected. Ask them the hard questions, and if they can't answer them, don't work with them.
Right. Research.
Exactly.
Double check. Make sure it's like, completely, there's nothing, that is inside that you're doubting. Make sure you get every answer answered,
And even within the ONAC, when you're working with someone with the ONAC, question them. Make sure that they can answer things right, and if you have any questions about them, if you have any concerns about them, contact the Mother Church. Talk to Little Otter, talk to Lone Buck, talk to whoever you can up at the Mother Church, and say, hey, I wanted to work with this person. Can you give me information on them? Are they, and the Mother Church, if they have any questions about it, they'll go in and start looking into the person to make sure that things are going to be right.
Right.
And they will let you know. They're not going to misguide you. They're there to help you out. But, I can say without a shadow of a doubt, Demian and his group down at the Peaceful Mountain Way are top notch. Everyone that I have talked to that has ever had an experience with them has just talked amazingly about them. And, I've not heard anything negative come out of that group. And,
that's good.
And so
I haven't heard anything negative come from any of the ONAC branches thus far. But like I said, I've only been involved for a year, so I don't have very much experience thanks to COVID. But hopefully this summer.
There have been some branches that have set up under the guise of, wanting to do this, but have not held up to the code of ethics and stuff. And the Mother Church will pull their charter, and they have. They will not put up with that. They have no problems doing that if you're not holding up to a certain level and a standard. And I know that I've seen it happen. I know some people that got into it and were not doing it for the right reasons. They was basically doing it to make money. And they weren't presenting the sacraments in the sacramental way, and ONAC pulled their charter, and they are no longer members of the ONAC, and they will never be members of the ONAC because
they don't deserve to be if they're not honoring it for what it is, because it's been gifted to us from divine source.
Right.
It is a sacrament. This is something that has pulled me from my mental anguish and has shown me like life is beautiful. It is beautiful, and not only that, but like meditation alone, not just these sacraments, but like meditation and just having that intent, that pure intent to connect to spirit, you
Right.
know, and connect to that divine source, you know, having that you know, it's just the most beautiful experience you can ever have, you know. And like I
Absolutely.
said, it's better than anything that I have ever put into my body, you know. Having that true pure connection just from intention alone has been more euphoric than anything I've ever done.
Oh, absolutely. We're getting down to about the last 20 minutes of the show, so I just want to go ahead and open up if anyone has any questions for Lauren or any questions just period on this topic and this point of discussion that we've had, please feel free to ask. We can continue to talk. If someone comes up with a question, I'll just go ahead and I'll read it off to you.
Okay.
So,
One thing I do want to touch base on before we get out of here is yoga, because that
okay.
has been another major you know, source for me. I started out just at the YMCA, you know, just doing a little YMCA class. The girl there, her name's Ginger. She's the best teacher I've ever had. There was a point in my life where my anxiety was so overwhelming that I would literally just leave my house to go to yoga because I needed it. I needed that release, that feeling, because I was just so in my head too much. And I would go in there just completely, just, you know, that stir crazy feeling in your chest, the fluttering, you know, sweaty palms. Sometimes I would slip on my mat because my hands would be so sweaty from my anxiety. And then I would get through it and I would have that shavasana and I would get up after and I would feel like $1,000,000, like a cloud, like I was just floating. And it was just such a healing experience. And I stuck with it for probably 2 years. I did her beginner class for, you know, I don't know, probably the first year. And then, you know, the second year, I started doing more intermediate. And again, this was all just at the YMCA. And she brought it to me one day. She said, you know, there is a teacher course that will be coming up. And she kind of like pointed at me and eyeballed me. And I'm like, talking in front of people, guiding a group. Oh my God, you know, I don't think that's for me. But again, I trusted and I just was like, you know what? What's to lose? You know, you have gained so much from this. Why not share it with other people? And so I did. I went through my YMCA training. It was an 8-week course. I didn't stick with the Y though, because I had found the metaphysical store that I was working at. I just taught private classes out of there.
Right.
And so we did it that way. And I did that for about a year, and then COVID hit. And so we had to shut down all group gatherings. But during COVID and quarantine, I took it upon myself to do my 200-hour RYT, which is registered yoga trainer. And I learned way more in that 200-hour than I did at the 8-week course. You know, the YMCA really just wants people to get in the motion. You know, they
Right.
want to get people in those forms and, you know, just
It's
make
the
them
stretching and working the body out and getting in there. They don't really get into the spiritual aspect of it.
Right, like the philosophy of it
Right.
all. And once I learned like the philosophy, I started learning the breath work, like proper breathing when you move, you know, learning that pranayama, you know, just also learning to eat better. That was something else, you know, listening intuitively to my body, what it needed, instead of just feeding it stuff that was, just convenient.
Right.
I actually started like, okay, I need more greens in my life. I need more this in my life.
Giving yourself substance instead of sustenance.
Right. Yes. And that is something that has really, I have so much more energy eating that way. Before I felt very laggy. And would kind of hit a brick wall about 3:00. But since I've started eating more vegetables and fruits and listening intuitively to my body, what it needs, because not everybody needs fruits and vegetables. Some people need a bunch of protein. It's just your body. You have to listen to your inner being, what it is calling. And that's I think a lot of people get so disconnected from themselves. And yoga is reconnecting that mind, body, spirit, really honoring yourself in that moment and just kind of, like, okay, my favorite thing about like yoga is with yoga, on the mat, you have to find that balance. There may be an asana you're in that is just hurting you so much, but you just have to breathe through it. And you can translate that into your life.
Right.
Not only, finding balance in your life. Are you consuming too much of this? Are you focusing too much attention here? Are you really, really balanced in all aspects of your life? And it really, on that mat, you really have these moments of internal work, like, oh my gosh, I need to do more here or less here, and again, learning to breathe through the tough moments in life. Instead of wanting to be so quick to react, detach yourself, take a breath, really focus on the truth in the matter, and start. My biggest issue was I'm very emotional based, like I'm very emotionally reactive, and that's something yoga has taught me to kind of step away, detach from the moment, and just experience it for what it is,
Right.
and honoring it in that moment, because a lot of us, we're so self-critical upon ourselves that we are just shoulda, coulda, woulda all the time. And instead of just being and appreciating the moment for what it is at face value, we are always trying to nitpick it and dig
Right.
down and
Was
find
it
the, whatever.
Was it you that responded to a post I put up on Facebook earlier this week about reacting? And it was talking about learning how to react from a spiritual standpoint instead of just like lashing out. And someone responded, they said it's about learning how to respond, not react.
Right. I don't think that was me, but I definitely agree with that
right,
for sure.
For some reason I wanted to say that it was you, but it might have been someone else that said that, but I wasn't 100% sure. So, but yeah, I mean, that comes along the lines is, we have these emotions, we have these feelings, they come up, and we need to learn how to, it's easy to lash out, especially when the emotions of anger and hurt and stuff come up to lash out at someone else. But if we step back and we take a moment and we breathe, we can respond in a more calm and peaceful manner than just lashing out in a pure raw reaction.
Yes. Seriously. Breath is life. Yeah. Breath is life.
So much. And like I've talked with quite a few people lately about anxiety and stuff, and someone dealing with anxiety disorders and stuff, because I've dealt with generalized anxiety disorder with panic attacks. Mm-hmm. and I've been through that quite a bit, and people have asked me, they're like, well, how do you control that? So breathing. Mm-hmm. The moment that I know that I'm starting to experience it, I start breathing. I start focusing on my breathing. There's some other grounding techniques and stuff that I'll use, but the first thing that I start focusing on is my breathing. I pay attention to it. I focus in on it, and I control that. And it's the same thing that I do when I'm starting to deal with a lot of pain issues, is I start focusing in on my breathing. I start controlling my breathing. It was funny because, like I mentioned, I was in the ER for some pain issues on Sunday, dealing around with this hernia that I'm dealing with. And the nurse came in, and they had given me a first round of medication, which was, it had numbed it out, but it hadn't got it to a point to where we could deal with the issue that we needed to. And I started meditating and getting into a real meditative state, and I didn't even realize she came into the room. And she asked me, because one of their concerns was, because they were giving me pain medication, was respiratory issues. She's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. She's like, and I'm like, why? She goes, I was worried. She goes, your breathing was really not normal. And I said, what do you mean not normal? She's like, well, you wasn't breathing like a lot of people breathe. I said, I was controlling my breath work. And I said, I was actually meditating and trying to work through the pain and using breath work, where a lot of times I'll, breathe in, hold it for a count of 5, then, you know, I'll breathe in for a count of 5, hold it for a count of 5, then breathe out for a count of 5. And she had come in when I was actually holding it in. And so she got a little bit worried when I was holding it in and I wasn't, you know, breathing in and out like most people normally do that she sees in the ER. And she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm meditating." And she's like, "Oh, okay."
That hippie stuff.
Yeah, I'm like, "Oh, you know, I'm using modern medicine and my own personal beliefs and stuff and meditation to work through this. You know, these are things that I can do." And, you know, I wholeheartedly believe that at any given point in time, meditations and breath work are some of the first things that we need to go to yes. Control ourselves, to get into a state of mindfulness, to be aware of what's going on within us and around us. And to me, that is usually the first thing. Like, I've had several people ask me, "Well, you know, I'm dealing with this. What do I need to do?" And I'll tell them, "Well, do you have a meditation practice? Do you control your breathing? Or do you do any mindfulness practices and training?" And when they say no, I say, "Well, start there." You know?
Right. Seriously. Yeah. Because, I mean, there's so many times that, like you said, anxiety controlled my life. There was one time when I was 15 years old, I remember my anxiety was so bad that my mom took me to the hospital 2 times. And what they did was give me a paper bag and told me to breathe in it and sent me home. Yeah. And at the time, I'm like, this isn't gonna work, you know? And now that I'm older, I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, because I had a real problem with breathing out too much and not getting enough, or breathing out too much of my carbon dioxide. So my carbon dioxide levels would drop. And so I wasn't getting enough. And then it would send me into these, like, my muscles would clamp down, and it was just very vicious. And, you know, now that I'm older and I've learned, you know, fire breathing and, you know, just the, like, you know, the inhale through one nose, exhale through the other nose. There's about 3 different the one you were talking about, you know, breathing in, hold it, blow it out, hold it, doing that. Mm-hmm. Those all have been just, I mean, tremendous. They just help so much as far as, you know, calming my mind. And I mean, I still deal with anxiety. I think anxiety is honestly a good thing. I think it's the body's internal dialogue telling you that something's not right. You know, and I think it's a very healthy thing to have, because it makes you kind of like reassess your situation right now. Is this resonating within me?
Exactly.
Is this, you know, in alignment with me? But because 9 times out of 10,
there's a difference between feeling anxious and that anxiety, and then getting into the point to where you're having an anxiety attack, where it's controlling you. You have went beyond feeling the sense of anxiousness and anxiety that's arising, and it has overwhelmed and consumed you and taken you over. Mm-hmm. And there's the difference. Like, I hear a lot of people talk about, you know, I grew up, my brother's in the military. I have a lot of family that was in the military. And you hear these guys talk about, you know, you'll hear people talk about, well, you know, how do you go into combat and stuff? You know, you don't have, you're fearless. You don't have any fear. And these guys are like, no, we have fear. We just learn how to not let that fear control us. We learn how to use that fear to let us know when, hey, this is not right. We're in a situation that we need to be really cautious and really careful in, because something's not going on right now.
Right. Instead of letting it control you, you let it fuel you. Yeah, definitely.
And you know, instead of, it's funny because Melvin talked about, in our conversation about energy, he talked about the Force from Star Wars. He brought that up several times. He kept going back to talking about the Force and Star Wars with things. And it was great because it's a great analogy. It really is. And it gets into
I
the
love
point
it. I
to
love it.
where Luke is training with Yoda, and Yoda teaches him. He says, "No, you've got to let that flow through you. You can't grab on to the anger and the fear. You've got to let the fear flow through you, and you can't let it consume you." And he says that's what leads to the dark side.
Right. Yeah. Oh my God, that's such a beautiful analogy. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Oh
that
yeah,
is 100%.
go watch. You'll have to watch the one with Melvin. It is great. We got really geeky in it. And when we started talking about chakras, I brought up Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Oh, that is the best one. I love that it's a kid's show. It's starting to educate them on that. Yes.
Oh God, the episode where Aang goes and trains with the guru about how to get through his blocks and his chakras, that teaching is it's funny. It's the guy he goes to, and he gives him I think it was banana and onion juice.
Hey, I remember exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, but that guy was teaching Aang how to, because Aang wasn't able to enter the avatar state, and it's because his chakras were blocked, and this guy was teaching him all about the chakras and how they flow and how the energy moves through them, and that when they're blocked by either trauma or fear or anxiety, it can block off the flow of that energy, which blocks off parts of ourself. And he was teaching Aang how to deal with that and how to let that go. And he even went into part of it is, you've got to come to terms with the people that you've hurt, and also that you've hurt yourself, and coming to terms with that, and not only forgiving yourself, but going and doing the, like you said, you had to do the process to right your wrongs.
Right. Yeah, I definitely believe that, and when it comes to that, that's clearing your consciousness. You have to do that, because I believe that hell is right here.
Oh yeah. And so
as
is heaven.
Well as heaven.
Yep.
As well as heaven, yes. You know what I mean? This is where heaven and hell reside.
Yeah.
And you can either create that heaven by thinking positively, or you can create that hell by consuming yourself with what little bit of negativity that may be surrounding you. Because like you said, it's a duality. There is light in all, and there is darkness in all. And it's, what are you going to focus your attention on? Because attention flow, or energy flows where attention goes.
Yes.
And that's been scientifically proven. And so, where are you going to consume your energy and your focus? Are you going to consume it on positive things, or are you going to consume it with negative things?
Right.
Because the law of attraction is very real.
Oh,
if you keep obsessing over all this bad stuff's just going to keep happening.
Exactly.
And so you have to find the silver lining. I know it's hard sometimes, but finding the silver lining in your situations will help you just be able to, of course, Buddha said, there's, suffering is a part of life, but, learning to detach from that and understand what that suffering is trying to teach you, that is the ultimate, that's the ultimate part of it, is learning from your experiences and becoming a warrior instead of a victim.
Right. Changing that mentality. We're coming up on just about the end of the show right now. Is there any last points you want to make before we call it a night?
No, I appreciate you inviting me on tonight.
I am so happy I have got to have this conversation with you, that you've come onto the show. And I tell you what, if you ever want to come on again and be a guest again, by all means, let me know. We will make it happen.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
This has been an honor. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us, Lauren. It's a beautiful story, and once again, congratulations on your sobriety. I know it's something that you're never going to lapse on, because I can just see it in you. You've gotten to that point to where, you've gotten to that point.
I've got the tingles through my whole body.
You can just see it.
Thank you so much.
Just see it.
This was an honor. honor for me as well. I am so blessed that I was able to come on here and share this with you. And I just appreciate you so much for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. And you, like I said, you're welcome on the show anytime. And just hang on the call after we wrap everything up. And then I'll talk with you a little bit and get you some of that information that I said I would pass over to you. And guys, I will put some of that stuff up on the Discord group as well, so you guys can access it as well. But at this point in time, I think it's time to go ahead and wrap the show up for the night. I want to thank everyone for coming out and participating in the conversation and stuff. Everyone that popped in to view, and once again, I'll be putting this up on YouTube tomorrow evening. The link will be available. I'll post it all over and stuff, and I'll send a link over to you too, so you can share it with whoever you want as well, Lauren. So at that, I just want to say thank you to everyone, and everybody have a good night.
Thanks.